Good morning, everyone. The objective of my presentation is to give those who are new here a quick background on the Forest Harvest Collective Mark, or FHCM for short. For those who have heard it already, I hope my presentation will serve as a refresher for you. So let me start with the question, what is a collective mark? From the term, we can gather that it refers to a mark or a label of products that is owned or used by a collective or a group. The World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, defines collective marks as signs that distinguish a characteristic common to the products of the members of an association. Not just any characteristic, but this characteristic has to be of value to the market. Examples of these common characteristics can be geographical origin, materials used, or the mode of production. In relation to ownership, the collective mark is owned by a private entity, like an association, that is responsible for making sure that members comply with the agreed standards. Regarding its usage, it can only be used by the members of the association who meet these standards. And for the function, it is supposed to inform the public of the distinguishing characteristic of the product. So how did we start the FHCM? So back in 2013, we conducted an assessment for the appropriate labeling of forest honey in Cambodia. During that time, it was recommended that the best option was to develop a collective mark versus opting for a third-party certification. Here, I outlined some of the challenges to a third-party certification that led us to develop the collective mark. So during the assessment, we saw that certifications, there were different certifications for different qualities and market niches like fair trade, organic, or sustainable sourcing from the forest, like the FSC. And most, if not all, have high costs. And in most cases, they are acquired through project support. But since most of these certifications require periodic renewal, many communities are not able to renew and maintain them outside project duration. Individually, producers do not generate enough volume to cover this cost. And working with NTFP that have relatively smaller and irregular production and supplies, the volume is again not enough to cover for the costs. It is also the case that many of these certifying bodies have limited capacities on NTFP products. Although it must be said that over the years, these certifying bodies have also tried to find ways to address these issues. So why did we choose to develop a collective mark? What are the benefits? Being a mark that is specifically developed for the group or community and NTFP producers, the mark is customized to highlight the distinct values of the group, representing the whole package from its ethical production, its sustainable sourcing, and its good quality. Based on the experience of rattan lestari or sustainable rattan in Indonesia, the cost is relatively lower, about 1/3 of the cost of a third-party certification. And unlike payments made to a certifying body that is paid every year or every 3 years that is gone after the duration of the certificate, the costs we incur in developing and maintaining the FHCM are investments into the collective's own brand and its products that we benefit from now and in the long term. Unlike a third-party certification, which is only useful during the validity period of the certificate. Also, the mark is owned by the collective, the ones who use the mark. And finally, the mark is NTFP specific and is expected to have a stronger local ownership of processes, including validation. So what is the Forest Harvest Collective Mark? It is a collective mark that aims to highlight the forest source and sustainability of products coming from community forestry groups. And it covers all non-timber forest products that are harvested from the forests, whether from the wild or already domesticated sources. At the moment, there are 3 key parameters that the Forest Harvest Collective Mark wants to highlight. And these are, of course, we start from the quality, that the product meets the safety and market standards, Second, sustainability, which covers the sustainable and ethical harvesting and production of the product. And in a broad sense, it also covers the sociocultural factors that is part of a sustainability as a whole. And third, traceability, that products indeed come from well-managed community forests and legal sources. Currently, there are discussions on whether some parameters need to be highlighted and separated, such as sociocultural factors and legality. So why, as a collective and as a region, should we work together and develop the FHCM? First, we see that there is a common factor among all of us, and that is the natural community and forest source products harvested in a sustainable way. We need to distinguish and emphasize this value of products coming from sustainable forests in the market and create that value if it is still not yet there or it's still weak. And through the process of the collective mark, which is adopted from the Participatory Guarantee System, or PGS, we are able to demonstrate evidence that indeed products are coming from sustainable forests. And finally, we need to make a stronger impact in the market, and we can do this by pooling our limited resources for marketing. So how does the FHCM work? The idea of the FHCM is that it can be applied to any product coming from sustainable community forests of associated CBNEs. For each type of product, it starts with the development of a product book of standards, which will be submitted to the FHCM committee. The workshop we have now is actually part of this first phase as we develop the product book of standards for honey from Apis cerana. The second step is the identification and training of local and regional auditors. And some of you might become part of these groups, whether as part of the committee or as auditors. And the third step is the self-assessment by the producers and an audit composed of different producers and other stakeholders. Fourth step is the recommendation of the auditors for improvement if necessary, or the issuance of the permit to use the mark. Should there be improvements made, then a second audit will be scheduled. And then the final step is the use of the FHCM mark on the product of the CBNE. It should be remembered that a collective mark, or any certification for that matter, is not a magic pill that you have it and you have many orders. So here I outline quickly the conditions for a successful collective mark. So first, you need to start with good quality, differentiated product and market demand. We have to work on establishing a good reputation of the association. And to do this, we need to have consistent marketing and promotions. There is also a need for commitment of partners to maintain quality and authenticity of the mark by being true to the standards. And of course, there has to be systems that need to be developed and that they should work and be implemented. So just to share with you the timeline or an overview of how the FHCM has developed over the years. It began with the forest honey, specifically for Apis dorsata. And so, as I said, the study was conducted in 2013, and in 2015, we had a series of consultations with partners involved in honey, and through online meetings, email exchange, and then we had Bandung Dunia workshop in 2015 in Cambodia. And during this process, we consolidated the regional honey standards that drew from the honey standards used by the different partners from different countries. And from there, we had a pilot in Sumbawa, Indonesia, and the details of this process will be shared by Tammy later. Then the trademark was registered in the Philippines by the NTFP-EP, pending the formation of the association that will own this mark later on. So moving forward, the FHCM is expanding to cover new products besides honey. There are also processes for rattan and eco-textiles. There are also processes to firm up the ownership and management of the FHCM. And as I end my presentation, I invite everyone through the Forest Harvest Collective Mark. Let's create a community around sustainable forest and community source products where all, including the producers, the value chain actors, and the consumers are engaged and committed. Thank you very much.